Hello and welcome to Past Your Bedtime. My name's Bev. I used the word serendipity at the start of an episode a few weeks ago. Today's conversation is another example of how it keeps on showing up as I make new connections and friendships. Attending an event recently, during the evening meal, I sat down next to a farmer called Will Sanders, who started to tell me about his work. It was a busy time for him with spring calving underway, but he'd managed to find a few hours to come and join the group because he truly believes in the connection of people in agriculture and participates in various groups, all with the aim of improving education and reinforcing the bonds across the farming community. One such endeavour is his participation in Farmer Time, a group of farmers who share life on the farm with school children via regular video links to the classroom. As he explained it to me, I stopped him and said, "Hang on a minute, I'm sure someone messaged me about that today." I'd skimmed the message, making a note to read it fully later on, so I pulled it up on my phone, and it was indeed an invitation to talk to Tom Martin, the founder of Farmer Time. I'll be meeting Tom in the next few weeks, down on his farm in Peterborough, so listen out for that one when it lands. Tom's also well known for spearheading the recent court appeal against the changes in inheritance tax. At the time of putting this episode together, it's not clear whether the decision to throw the challenge out will be appealed. But for now, it seems likely that only a change in government will overturn this damaging legislation. And as all that plays out in the current Westminster playground, perhaps by the time I see Tom, all will become clear. Anyway, back to my chat with Will. In this episode, Will takes me through his personal journey in farming, which began in quite an unconventional way. As he progressed through various roles, he'd come to realise that the people in farming were the key to its success, and so he set about assessing how best to manage and develop the skills needed to build and maintain a strong farm team. Referring to these as human skills rather than soft skills, today he runs a coaching business alongside running the farm. We pick up the conversation with Will telling me, though, how he became a farmer.
I was born and bred in the city, so I'm not from a farming background at all, really. My dad was in the fire service, my brother's in the fire service, and my mum was a secretary. So I went to a city high school and everything. And then my uncle had a dairy farm, so we used to go there every now and again. And literally, they had the radio on in the parlour. And I was like, "Oh, you get to work and listen to the radio." I was like, "Oh." I liked the sound of that. So I popped in the parlour and helped out in the parlour and stuff like that. And then I saw my cousins going to agricultural college, and and they were having fun and enjoying life. So I was like, right, I'll have a go at farming, really, because I was all set to go in the fire service with my family. Also, I was all set to go to A levels and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
then just made a bit of a last minute change and went to agricultural college, and that's where it all started, I suppose, for me. I went to agricultural college, and then I started working on dairy farms straight from college. I didn't go to uni, and then I've worked all around the UK on different dairy farms. I've spent some time in New Zealand. And I've generally what I've done is I suppose I've worked on a dairy farm for about 4 years at a time, and then kind of learned a lot, honed my skills, and then I've always been like, what's next? Like, where am I
Yeah,
going?
moving on.
Move on around the country, really, and dragged my family with me.
Go back to your decision to go into ag college. What was it like? I don't know how long ago that was, but how were you received
It was about 20 years ago. Yeah, yeah. Well,
as a city boy? Then how did you come across any challenges like being from a non-farming family?
my nickname was Eaton Boy. Eaton Boy, whether I had a posh accent or, but we were in a lecture and we were a financial lecture, and the lecturer was telling us how to work out percentages for whatever reason was, and I was sat there confused. I was like, "That's a really long way," I said, "to work out a percentage. Why don't you just turn it all to decimals and do it this way?" And they all kind of, the lecturer looked at me and was like, "Well, yes, you can, but I'm teaching you this way," and therefore, for some reason, because I was telling the lecturer what to do, they called me Eaton Boy. I was always known as Eton Boy then. But
Where
no,
was where was that?
that
Where
was
was college?
that was at Rodbaston in Staffordshire. So yeah, it was a small agricultural college, but yeah, it was, and we made, I made friends for life. I still play paintball with my best mate who I met at college, and yeah, we talk really regularly and stuff. So yeah, friends and colleagues for life
Yeah,
through agriculture and throughout the industry, throughout my working career in agriculture. I've made friends for life.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
So you hear people say that it's a struggle, or there's a definite need to get more kids going through the ag college system who haven't come from that background. And uh, I, from your own experience, obviously, it didn't present you with a problem fitting in.
No, not at all. And I'm a real strong driver of that as well. I partake in Farmer Time, which is a program that you video call into classrooms to kind of just explain to the school kids what you're doing on farm, how you're doing it, why you're doing it. I deal with two classes on quite a regular basis now for the past 4 years, and the questions we get asked and the engagement from the kids is just amazing. It really is. It's a 20-minute phone call once a week for a couple of months of the year, and it's just telling them all about what we do, and they're really engaged by it. So I'd hope from that, you never know, one or two, one person might go, oh, I might want to go into farming, and that's great, isn't it?
Yeah, that's incredible. What ages are the kids?
8 and 9, 8 and 9 in primary
Lovely.
schools.
Oh, they're
So
sponges at that age, aren't they? I remember I was a
yes,
real pain in the arse 9-year-old.
and some really challenging questions I get asked,
Yeah.
like how can you tell the difference between a boy and a girl cow? All these kind of things that you're like, right, well, how can I actually explain this? So, but I'm actually quite honest and open, and I've been able to show them a live carving cow and stuff. So while we're asking questions, there's a cow carving in the background. And they found that really, really fascinating. And they then see within that phone call how quickly that calf gets up and how
Yeah,
well they're looked after and stuff. So it's amazing to be able to do that.
it's a miracle. Well, that's how we got chatting, was it? One of the events that we both attended, you started to tell me about Farmer Time, and I stopped you and said, hang on a minute, somebody's just messaged me about that today. I keep finding these little coincidences and things cropping up when I'm meeting new people, and it's like this great big web of connected individuals. So I'm still waiting to talk to Tom. Well, I spoke to Tom. I'm still waiting to get a date for us to have a proper conversation on here. But yeah. So how long have you been doing that for?
I've been doing that for, it will be 5 years now. Yeah,
Wow.
5 years. So I've been working with one school mainly for the past 5 years. And I've taken on, every now and again, I'll take on another school and just do maybe 1 year with them. So yeah, and I've had a really good relationship with those guys.
Yeah. Fabulous. So after college, you said you didn't go on to uni. What was
No,
your first?
my first job was, as a herds person, just as a general farm worker, really on a dairy farm. And I suppose I was fresh out of college, and I probably did that job for 12 months. And then I actually kind of fell out of love with farming a bit at that point. Not quite sure why, but I just did. It was long hours. And so I kind of fell out of love a bit with farming. And then I left farming actually for about 6 months at that point, because I thought, right, I've fallen out of love with it. I'm going to go and try and get into the fire service, and just decided to do that. But then actually found that I missed farming when I left. I missed it too much, and yeah, got back into farming, and then went working on a robotic system at Nottingham Uni for about 4 years, which was, great, great people there. And but then I had a bit of a sense to go to New Zealand and see what dairy farming was like out there, really, because there was always a lot of talk about New Zealand was at that time was the dairy hub of the world, I suppose, in a lot
Uh-huh.
of the conversations. So I was like, well, let's go out and see what it's like. So I went out there for 12 months and fell in love with the grazing system, really. and just, yeah, found my passion for grass, really, if that sounds proper.
So explain what you mean by that. So, well, first of all, going back to the robotic system. So you're talking about a difference in two systems there between
Yeah.
robotic and grass. Can you give me an overview of what that means?
Yeah, so the robotic system, they were all housed all year round calving. And so, there's totally place for those kind of systems in the dairy industry and in our country. It all depends, the system depends on the people and the cows and how you want to run your farm. But I kind of fell a bit out of love with that kind of system. Cows were housed all the time.
So never put out on pasture at all?
No, never put out on pasture. Only if they were dry and not milking, basically. They'd go out for a month or two. But, welfare was high, cows were happy, everything was fine. But it was just my particular thing was like I wanted to milk cows that were grazed outside because I just preferred that way. And so that's why I went to New Zealand, really, to learn about grazing.
And when I see on your LinkedIn profile, you've got various sort of skills attributed, and it says about grazing management.
Yeah.
What's involved in that? What did you have to learn to?
So it's a lot about grass utilization, really, and how we allocate the grass to the cows, how the grass is managed. I see it as a lot about, it's a bit like a chess game because it's very dependent on weather. And you've got to graze grass really well so that the quality keeps coming back. Because if you don't graze it that well, the quality will disappear in the grass. The energy level will drop.
Sugars
in the grass, the sugars will drop. So it's not as quality feed that you need. So therefore, then you end up having to put in extra feed like silage or concentrates. But whereas we here at the moment, we probably feed about 85% grazed grass to the cows as part of their diet. So we graze our cows from end of January through to mid-December. So we generally house our cows for about 6 to 8 weeks of the year. Wow. Only when weather conditions don't allow us to be outside, basically. So, yeah, it involves walking your farm every week with what's called a plate meter. So a rising plate meter is basically a metal stick with a light aluminium plate on it that rises up and down as you press it against the grass. And then it does a calculation and then it tells you how much dry matter is in that paddock per hectare. So then you know how much feed is there. So then you know how many cows it will feed effectively. So then you can allocate the correct area to that group of cows that you've got. So in theory, they go into that paddock, they eat the grass and they come out and there shouldn't be any grass left there to eat. So then they don't see that paddock again for another 25 to 30 days, which allows that grass to grow back to really optimal conditions again.
Yeah. And you're moving around then in parcels of pasture to accommodate that 30-day turnaround.
Our whole farm here is split into over 100 different paddocks. Each has a cow track to it. Each has at least one water trough in it. So then we can allocate that paddock and we won't have to go back there and eat the regrowth, because the other way is what they call set stocking. So set stocking, you will put a number of animals on a block of land and you'll kind of leave them there for a week, maybe. And they will just eat the grass that is there available. There will be enough grass to feed them. But in that week, the grass is growing still. And so, but you're then eating the growth with the cows. So then you're losing feed effectively in that moment. So we don't set stock. We go in, the cows clean their plate, and then they get a fresh plate. They clean their plate, they get a fresh plate. And that's kind of how it works, basically.
What's mob grazing?
Similar to what we do, basically. Yeah, similar.
Just another name for it.
Yeah, another name. You probably go into maybe higher covers and you accept, when I say a cover, so taller grass.
Yeah.
So you'd accept more wastage in mob grazing. The mob grazing mentality might well be eat a third, tread a third in, waste a third. I think you'd have to check that out and make sure I'm correct on that, because, if I've got that correct. But it's similar to what we do.
Fascinating. I've not heard I've not had anybody explain that one to me before. So thanks. So Once you went out to New Zealand, so 20 years ago, roughly.
Yes, 2006 I went out in New
Yeah.
Zealand. Yeah, bang on 20 years ago. Yeah, actually.
Okay. And how many different farms did you visit?
So probably about three or four I worked on. So as soon as I got to New Zealand, bit of a baptism of fire. I went working for a relief company who would basically send somebody in to manage the farm while the farmer was either on holiday or ill, etc. And so I went working for a farmer that was unable to work for his whole calving and mating season. And I basically calved his cows and mated the cows with him for that whole season. So I didn't take a day off for about 4 months, my first 4 months in New Zealand, and that's proper Kiwi farming, and I loved it. Loved it because the way of life out there is you work hard and you play hard, and everybody is great community spirit out there. And so I did that for this one farmer while I was out there, and I then took 3 days off. I actually took 3 days off between calving and mating, where he lent me his car to go away for 3 days, and then I got a speeding ticket on the way home, which he paid. To be fair to him, he was very relaxed about it. He was like, "Don't worry," he said, "I'll pay that." So yeah, I was all well and good. So yeah, and I learned a lot about grazing management while I was out there, and I developed a real passion for it. And yeah, and I think grazed grass is key to profitability in our system. There's a massive correlation between the number of tons you can graze and your cost of production. So we really drive at it, really. And we use the plate meter. We measure the farm every week. That goes into a data program called AgriNet, which then produces a grazing wedge, which basically we then start at the top of the wedge and graze downwards, basically. So we know that we're always going into our optimum cover, which is about beer can height, really, for visuals. And then if we're going into over beer can height, we have a decision to make. Either we graze it or we take that out for silage, depending on weather conditions and growth rates. So every week we get an average farm cover. We get a growth rate of how fast the grass is growing, and we get a demand. So how much do we need the farm to grow? So if our growth is going lower than our demand, we need to make a decision. We either put more feed in, or we graze some silage paddocks. Or so if the growth is exceeding our demand, we have a decision to make. Do we carry on going slower because we can see the grass is going to slow growth, or do we take paddocks out for silage? And if we're feeding, do we stop feeding? Concentrates by that I mean. So it's all a chess game. I really it's a bit nerdy. It's very nerdy. My kids call me a nerd, a grass nerd. So yeah, I can probably bore people to death on some of it.
After 20 years, I'm guessing you have a sense. You'll look out the window at the weather and know from the forecast what your growth rates are going to be, probably.
Yeah, it's getting to know your farm, really, and how you can have each individual paddock in your head and how they react to weather conditions, whether they were grazed well, poorly. And I've got about 3 different weather apps on my phone that I look at a number of times a day. It's been dry at the minute. There's rain coming. So I'm like, right, okay, my chess move now is I'm going to take silage out because I believe rain is coming. So therefore I can put my foot down and we can go and graze the farm with very little added supplement, extra feed going in.
Yeah. See, there's a number of things that I keep on hearing that convince me I should have been a farmer. It's too late now, but I like to get up early in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with the weather.
Yeah.
And the travel. I'm been surprised by the number of farmers I've spoken to who at some point have taken themselves off to foreign lands to learn how things are done in other countries. Obviously, the Nuffield Scholarship is a great example of that, and I've spoken to a few Nuffield people. Did you fund your own trip to New Zealand, or was that backed by any of the...
No, I funded my own trip. Yeah, I funded my own trip. I suppose it was back in the day. I wasn't aware of any funding available to go do it. So yeah, it was just something I was like, my wife, I told her at the time, I was probably, I was like, right, I'm going. You can either come with me or you can not come with me. Your choice is yours. And then she came and joined me for a month over Christmas. And so I took a month off while we were out there, and we travelled the length and breadth of New Zealand for a month.
Yeah.
But yeah, I took myself out there just because I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it now, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I was just lucky enough to have saved enough money for the flight, and literally had enough money for the flight, and went on the internet, found this person out there that was a recruitment agency effectively, and he was like, yeah, come along, we've got you a visa, it's all sorted. And then I got into Auckland, went to the hotel for the night and thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I done? Phoned my dad up, and I was like, I think I've made such a mistake here, Dad.
On your first night?
Oh, my first night. I've made such a mistake. I'm all on my own. I don't know anybody in a foreign country. And he said, sleep on it. Give me a ring in 2 days. If you still want to come home, come home.
So yeah.
And then I went, and I just travelled for a little bit down to where I was working, met the people, and I was like, right, yeah, okay, suck it up. Homesickness is just homesickness. And yeah, so yeah, I'd recommend it to absolutely anybody. We've got an individual that's working for us at the moment, young lad. Over the past, he's worked for us for about 4 years, and he's from a non-farming background as well. Started off coming here as a relief milker. He was a Sparky's mate, and now he's been a full-time employee for the past 2 years. Really great person, and we're like, why don't you go to New Zealand? It would be a loss for us, but it would be great for you, and you never know, you might come back. Go to New Zealand, see what it's like. So I encourage anybody to, whether you're into grazing farming or big Holstein farming, go to America. Yeah, go see what it's like. Yeah. The agriculture. You can milk a cow anywhere in the world.
Is New Zealand still the pinnacle for the dairy industry?
Debatable. I live in the UK. I think we graze our grass pretty well. There are some very, very good people in the UK with grazing cows and stuff. So, but yeah, I would still recommend anybody going to New Zealand to see grazing cows.
I was going to say, so what would they see that's different if they, apart from the experience of just being in another land?
Obviously the culture I think is different. Wherever you go in the world, the culture is going to be different. So I think it's just about experiencing other cultures. New Zealand is you work hard and you play hard. I think they've got the balance really right. I think the culture in the UK is quite weekend centric, if you like. Uh-huh. I didn't find that in New Zealand. Everybody was kind of like every day's the same in the dairy industry anyways, but sports is big in New Zealand.
Yeah.
You have to play rugby in New Zealand, at least when I was out there. You had to. And I all played cricket. That was the only two options. Hockey, maybe.
What did you choose?
Cricket. Yeah, so I actually timed it really well because I ended up I met somebody in a pub over there, and he was milking his cows once a day, but he busted his knee, and I was just finishing a job, and he said, "Why don't you come and milk my cows for 6 to 8 weeks while I recover?" So I was like, "Yeah, I'll go and milk the cows," and that was when the Ashes were on in Australia. So I milked his cows once a day. And then we both just sat down and watched the Ashes for the rest of the day with a crate of beer. So I was like, "Yeah, I can do this."
No wonder you settled in.
Yes.
Good. So after your year over there, what did you return to? What was your ambition when you came back from New Zealand?
Yes, when I came back, I decided to try and come back into the grazing system in the UK. We had our first child when I came home. And but I actually found it really difficult to get into the grazing system in the UK. Now, this was a little while ago, and I think opportunities are much better now. But I suppose it's what's driven me to kind of drive more people into the industry was that I found a bit of a brick wall that my experience was in New Zealand. So people thought I would either go back to New Zealand in short succession, or my experience was too Holstein-y from an indoor all year round system. So people were like, well, you don't really understand the block calving grazing system. So I came against a little bit of a brick wall for that, which was a bit disappointed. So, but then I got offered a couple of jobs down south in Dorset and Devon. So, and I chose one down there, which is now shut down a couple of years ago. But I worked as a herds person under the herd manager down there for 4 years on a grazing system, but got into discussion groups at that point, grass-based discussion groups, and that filled me full of knowledge, just going out to other farms, seeing what they were doing. They were doing similar, but not the same. And then also getting challenged on what we were doing on farm. So that's where I really fell in love with the discussion group mentality mindset as well, really. So I've forever, since coming back, I've always been involved in discussion groups, either part of them, chairing them, or I facilitate one or two of my own at the minute. So yeah, and then in that job in Dorset, I was kind of like, right, after 3 to 4 years, I was like, well, what's next? There wasn't really any progression for me to move into a herds manager's role. So I had open conversations with the owner. I was like, look, there's nowhere for me to go, so I'm going to go and look to see what's out there. Because I don't like doing things where I won't go and find a job without talking to the people I'm working for.
Yeah.
And I found an opportunity in Wales as a herd manager with a person who I get on with, who we were talking about joint ventures and stuff like that. So joint ventures and partnership with financial involvement in the farm. So I moved my family, and at the time we just had our second child. I tend to time things pretty well. We tend to move with about a 6-month-old. So yeah, I'm always
Mrs. Sanders loves you for that.
Yeah, which I'm always popular. So we had 2 children, and we moved to Wales. And yeah, again, I stayed there for about 3 or 4 years. Things didn't really work out with the joint venture side, but again, I learned a lot. We then had our third child, and then moved, and then I moved to Staffordshire, back to where my wife is from, and again worked for a really, really good person in Staffordshire who was all about the grass and about the people and about progressing people as well. And I got to that point, I was running one farm, which was part of 2, basically. It was one milking herd, but I had my own little farm, if you like, 400 cows, a member of staff. I managed the grass, I managed everything that kind of went on the farm. So I was quite happy with that. But then there came to a bit of a point where my eldest was starting secondary, and we kind of had to make a decision. We didn't want to be moving around the country, interrupting their education. So it was like, either we stayed put, we went for a tenancy or a joint venture, or I looked for a farm manager's role. And then that's where I met Rupert Major, who I'm currently working for. I've been here for 7 years now. And because I was honest and open with my current employer and said, look, here are my choices. Is there any opportunity here? There wasn't. It was great to have that conversation. So it's like, well, actually, okay, I'm going to go and look to see what opportunities there are again. And he actually introduced me to Rupert. And he was like, look, looking for a farm manager, come and have a look. And the actual interview process and application process took 6 months, really. Took quite a long time. I came here, he came to me, just so none of us wanted to do something that wasn't going to sit right with any of us.
Yeah.
So then I moved here, 7 years ago, and took on my first farm manager role, really, which was there's been a learning curve, a massive learning curve about people. It's huge, huge learning curve. Well supported.
How big is the farm that you manage today?
So with 404 hectares, we've got 650 spring calving cows, and I've got 7 full-time people. Then we recruit in like 3 calf rearers through the spring as well. And we also have vet students, and generally at least 1 person on kind of work experience from a local college. So yeah, a good
aside
team.
aside from the people bit, which we'll come back to because it features large now in what you do, how different is it to be a farm manager? What are the additional responsibilities apart from managing that team?
I guess my steep learning curve was going from being responsible for the role, to actually being responsible for the people doing the role. So I had to learn quite quickly to delegate, to be supportive, and to be able to set everybody up really for the best that they can do for their success. So yeah, to try and not milk as often as I wanted to, maybe, or even to go and manage the grass. I've had to learn over the past few years to kind of let go of things, but to find that balance where I can be kind of in control, but give control. And so I've had to. It's been a real learning curve for me over the past. Lots of successes, but lots of challenges as well, and things that, well, okay, I would have done things a bit differently in hindsight now, but it's kind of where I wouldn't be where I was now without making mistakes. 100%.
What's your proudest moment of doing that? Because managing people, I think, is the toughest gig. Was it you that wrote? Yeah, it was you. A few weeks back, you said something about, I hope this isn't too fluffy, a post that you put out. And I'm thinking, no, it's the toughest job going, managing people.
Yeah, I think, it is huge. And it's the term soft skills is something that I've grown to really not like, because there's nothing soft about the human element of what we do. It's probably one of the most challenging things. So I'd like to try and change that mindset slightly to be the human skills, not the soft skills. But I think my proudest moment was probably part of my most disappointing kind of moment was, well, I had probably 4, maybe 5 people leave the team within the space of about 3 months, probably. And in a team of like 7 or 8 people, that's quite detrimental. It's huge. Yeah. We were replacing people, but we weren't replacing them with the people that we needed. And I suppose my proudest moment was over the next 18 months. Pretty much every one of those people came back. I had a phone call or a conversation that was like, okay, they've been elsewhere. They thought the grass was greener, but it wasn't. But actually, I learned with them leaving, I learned so much from each individual person as they left. It was like, well, actually, how could I have retained that person? And each person gave me a bit of learning of actually I could have communicated better. I could have involved them better in what was going on. And so from that, I was like, well, actually, kind of come back and let's your feedback is critical to me, to be able to everybody work better together.
So it's the misunderstandings, isn't it? It's common. It doesn't matter whether it's farming or other industries. It's one person gets an impression, their perspective is all that matters to them in that moment.
100%. And I'm very aware. I've learned since being in this role of my persona, my drivers, if you will.
Yeah.
I can be quite blunt, abrupt. I'm very results driven. I've had to learn as a manager, as a farm manager, to be like, well, actually, it's not necessarily all in my area. It isn't about the results; it's about the process. And actually, when things fail, it's generally on the process, not the people. It's more about the process and actually what was the communication like, what was the understanding like. So I've had to kind of learn pretty quickly and really look at myself of like, well, actually, where could I have done better? And it's a difficult place to be. It's a really difficult place to be because it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable place to be. And I went 2 years ago. I went on a worshipful company course called the Challenging Rural Leadership,
right?
From the Duchy College, and that for me was just. I think that's been, for me personally, it's been life changing for myself, because I went there maybe not the best like headspace kind of thing, kind of like, well, okay, I'm going to go this course. I'm not sure what it's about. And yeah, people say it's life changing. People, it's about leadership, it's about management, but let's see kind of what it's about. I was supported to
Yeah.
go there by my employer, by the Tim White's community countrywide foundation, and by the Worshipment Company of Farmers as well. And I found it really incredible actually to be in a room with like-minded people as well that were also kind of like not sure, what this is all about, but it's got a very good reputation
It does.
for helping people and moving people forward and stuff. So I did that course, and that was a 2-week residential course away from the farm, away from the family, and brought forward some really challenging conversations with myself, with employer, with lots of things. But it armed me to actually be like, brought more clarity to where I want to go and what I want to do, and gave me some real practical skills as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've heard nothing but people's praise for that course. I saw it advertised last year, and I guess that the next cohort will be coming up again soon. So you have to apply for it, don't you? You have to put forward your presentation as to why you're
Yeah,
right for it,
yeah.
right? It's not a shoe-in. So you do
No,
something
100%. No,
to
it's not a
convince them.
showing at all. And it is more about, it is about the people they put in that room. You do an application, written application, video application, all kinds of stuff. And then you go for interviews and stuff. And they will be, I'm sure, looking for a specific kind of person that they believe wants to be doing the course and stuff like that. So I think it was very clever how, the people they put me in the room with,
What do you
and
think they
friends.
saw in you? Because you were a bit like, yeah, we'll see. What do you think they picked up on?
I think I talked a lot about people. And in fact, I want to help the industry, because I do think the industry as a whole is amazing. We're really clever. We've sought stuff out. We've worked really hard. We just get on with things. But where people, the people that we work with, we can struggle. And I think sometimes the industry has a bit of a reputation of like, well, farming's a bit of well, if you can't do something else, go farming. Or, where actually farming is really technical.
Yeah.
And I think if we can crack the people side of things better, where we can encourage our people more, make them feel more listened to, have them more engaged, that make them feel part of the business, essentially. Like we have retained people for to about 18 months, 2 years. We haven't had to recruit, which is something, but we're now having to recruit because there's people leaving the team, which is perfectly fine. And I'm really proud of the people that are leaving the team. This one person's worked for us for 5 years. He's going off to do his own farm. He's had his own farm since working for us and built it up. And one of the reasons I think where I get this from is I have left jobs because I've not felt engaged. I've not felt listened to, maybe. I've not really felt involved in the business as such. So I've been like, well, actually, how can we, because of that point of view, that perspective, I've been like, well, actually, how can I make people feel informed about what's going on? How can I make them involved in the business? So I have a bit of a saying of like, to be informed is to be involved. And it's not that they're necessarily doing the job, but it's just to inform them like why they're doing the job. So we're all really good as farmers of telling people how to do the job. That's how I was taught. I wasn't really explained. The why wasn't really explained. I was just like, right, do this, do that. Then when you finish that, go do the next job. And it's like, well, okay, but actually, why am I? What difference is this job doing? Why should I have to scrape up really well? What difference does it make? I'm only going to scrape it up tomorrow. So it's informing everybody of why we need to do things the way we do. And I think one of the challenges of the industry is the fact that most farms are different. There's not a set standard working process that goes from farm to farm. So, which is perfectly fine. We're all individuals and everybody runs their farm the way they do. But when it comes to people, it's, as a person, we're going from farm to farm. It's probably really quite difficult to be like, oh, I've learnt it this way, and then I've got to go and learn it another way because
Yeah.
somebody else wants to do it a different way. So if we could just crack that kind of way of how we inform our people and how we speak to them, how we involve them, I think we could create more retention in the industry, and therefore that retention creates a better story to recruitment.
Yeah. Yeah. Spot on. It's amazing. I had come from a different background entirely, but what you're talking about in terms of communication styles and learning styles around, needing to understand the why. I'm 30 plus years ago, remember going on a course and learning that I was a pragmatist, which had technically meant that I don't really want to learn a new way of doing things unless you tell me why that's important.
Yeah.
And then I'll go, oh, okay, then.
Yeah.
I read all the books and watch all the stuff about it, but unless I understand the reason why, there's a little bit of an inner resistance to actually getting on with it.
100%. We kind of work a lot with the team of the why and how we all react to the change. So rather than just going, right, we're going to do, like, we did a lot of work on our milking routine. And when I first started this job, the milking routine, there wasn't a massive problem, but people were milking differently. There wasn't much consistency within the team. And so I made the team watch videos of how to milk in these parlors and stuff like that. It was not working. People were like, well, why don't we just put in automatic cup removers? It'll solve all the problems. And I was like, no, I've never used them. You don't need them. And so we did some investigation, but we involved the team in all of that investigation. We then found evidence of how cows milked. We went back into the physiology of how cows milk and how they let milk down and all that, and we involved the team in it. And now the team brought up their own milking routine. So then it's not my milking routine.
Not imposed. Yeah.
It's their milking routine because they've come up with it. And then all of a sudden, anybody new coming into the team, it's like, oh, hi, yeah, this is how we milk here because this is what we decided. And so it's not me coming in going, no, you're doing it wrong. It's actually now the team is training new members and holding each other to account when we slip, because slippage is natural. I do it every day, I'm sure. I come home going, I should have done this a bit better, or all this kind of stuff. So we shouldn't beat ourselves with a stick when that happens, but it's just the team starts to hold each other to account. So we've kind of got that in the team there.
Fantastic. So you've launched something recently. Do you want to tell me about AgriCoach?
Yeah, so AgriCoach kind of came about as, my kind of drive to want to help in the industry around people, really. I kind of thought about being a consultant, which was part of me going on the Worshipful Company course to be like broaden my scope into things. And I thought, well, actually, I've got good experience in the dairy industry. Could I be a consultant and help people in it? And then I took part in Helen Wyman's Toucan mentoring program, and I was a mentor. And I learned a lot from that with my mentee. Actually, I learned a lot of how I work, and I found that I was probably coaching rather than mentoring, which was quite so the difference between coaching and mentoring. So mentoring is somebody who's been there before, got the t-shirt, and can help guide that person as to what they're doing, whether they want growth or etc. really. Whereas coaching, it's more of I'm not the expert in the room. I'm just there to kind of listen, to kind of help light the way a little bit, ask certain questions that might illuminate a few things, and to kind of challenge some perspectives sometimes, or kind of get the reasons why that you might have a certain perspective. So I quite liked that kind of aspect, that I wouldn't have to be the expert in the room essentially. So and to look at people's working drivers as to how they think, and to kind of make them aware of them. Basically, that's all it is, creating a bit of awareness about themselves and about the people they work with. So I think to work with our people better, we need to really look within.
You have
as
to
to how.
hold the mirror up to yourself, don't
Yeah,
you, really?
100%. And it can be really uncomfortable place to be. And so I want to kind of just help people to be there and to help them through it, really. Yeah.
So you've launched the business. How can people find out about the coaching?
So I've started, I've done a website, so agricoach.uk is the website.
I'll pop it.
There's no .com on that. No, it's just agricoach.uk. So it was a cheaper website to be honest. It's only a few quid, but I was like, anyways, it goes with the name. So I was like, let's go for it.
Absolutely.
So agricoach.uk, I've launched that, and I'm just going to be doing sessions over Teams where I can explain what coaching is. So it's like a non-directive conversation. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to listen and to kind of probe a little bit into what's going on. So yeah, you can go to the website and you can contact me through that website, really, or agricoach.uk@gmail.com. Just drop me a message and drop me an email, and we can take it from there, really.
I will pop all the links in the show notes as we do. I'm guessing that you still enjoy the act of farming piece. So you going off to be a consultant full time was never really going to happen, right?
No, I think you're completely right in that. I love farming too much. I enjoy milking cows, measuring grass, but I think that gives me a bit of an edge. You know, I know the kind of language that we use as farmers, and I can give a farming perspective, really, and on certain things. And I can advise on cows and grass and stuff like that if those kind of things arose.
Yeah.
I've got some years of experience in farming, so yeah, I just want to be able to help people, really. And if we can create that better retention story, we will create a better recruitment story as well, which will then bleed into a much more positive narrative around farming. Because yes, it is challenging, but it's also so rewarding, and we sometimes forget how lucky we are to work in this industry, to be able to work outside with the animals that we love, or the crops that we enjoy growing. And yeah, we're very lucky to do what we do, and to showcase that is what we should be doing.
I love that. And that was the whole reason for starting this podcast, really, is to get underneath the skin of farmers and say, why do you do what you do? And I wish I had my time again to follow that when I was young enough to. So I'm hoping that Mrs. Sanders now is happy. We settled now in one location. We've not got any more plans to move, or certainly have any more kids.
That's all I'll ever say. No more kids. No more kids. But yeah, so it's kind of what's next is to see where AgriCoach goes. I'm always kind of, I've been here for 7 years now. I've had some conversations with my employer about where the future is and stuff like that. I'm always very open about those things, and he's well supportive of my coaching that I want to do. The coaching diploma I funded myself to do. So it's just let's see where the future goes, basically.
Do you do on-farm events at all? Can people come and visit you at the farm?
Yeah, we do from time to time. We do have an event. We've got an FCN event coming up on the 17th of July.
All right.
Where we'll be doing an open day for FCN. So FCN is the Farming Community Network. So I volunteer for those guys locally to support local farmers, local rural people through whatever they're going through. We'll cover mental health, any farming issues, family issues, anything really that the rural community is needing somebody to listen to, basically. And we can signpost to help if people are needing that kind of stuff. And I'm part of the Staffordshire FCN group, which is an absolutely amazing group of people who are all volunteers who are committed to helping their local community, I've only been a member for about 18 months, but my first meeting, I was blown away by the people in the room and what they did. And last year we put on a farmer's ball. which hosted around 400, just over 400 farmers and rural business people for a black tie dinner dance.
Just for the Staffordshire.
Just for the Staffordshire area, well, Staffordshire, Derbyshire, Shropshire. Yeah, people came from kind of all around, really. And that raised massive awareness for the FCN. And we also raised about £25,000 for the FCN from an auction and stuff, which was just incredible.
Yeah.
Well supported event by the local businesses and the people in the room at the time. And we're going to do it again this year. So, and tickets for that will go on sale. That way will go on sale on the 1st of July. If you're going to buy one of those tickets, I'd 100% recommend buying one on the 1st of July, because last year they sold out within a month. And we were absolutely blown away by the demand for these tickets. And we sadly were not able to accommodate everybody that wanted to come. Yeah. So this year we're saying, get your tickets and get them fast. Yeah.
Super. Oh, FCN's an amazing organisation. Absolutely.
It is. Yeah, some amazing people. Yeah.
Well, terrific. Well, I really want to thank you so much for spending some time with me. I know you're busy, but it's lovely to finally sit down and have a chat. And thanks for the lesson in grass management.
Bit nerdy, yeah.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with being nerdy, right? It is fascinating. I need to get out on farm a bit more, and that's on me, really. It's not like I'm not surrounded by them. Some farmers are difficult to pin down.
That's it. Well, if you're ever in the area, you're always welcome to come and see here.
100%. I think they're worried that I always turn up with a microphone. But no, I'm happy to just come and have a look. But that's lovely. Thanks so much for that, Will.
No stress. Thank you.
And we will see each other again soon.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ta-da.
Cheers.
My thanks to Will for his time and generosity in sharing his passion for dairy farm management. I learned a lot. And learning is very front of mind at the moment. Many of you will have teenagers in the house going through the stresses of exams, stresses felt by them and you, no doubt. Perhaps it's a good time to remember our own experience of exams and to recognise that whatever the outcome, there's always a way through. So good luck to all of you. Of course, learning happens in all sorts of ways and doesn't stop when you leave school. If you're a regular listener to this podcast, you'll be aware that I've recently launched a series of episodes focused on the experiences of people undertaking the Toucan mentorship. I'm dropping an episode every other Wednesday in addition to my weekly run, so why not subscribe to get both? Well, if the forecast is to be believed, by the time you hear this, we'll be basking in a mini heatwave, or what we used to call summer. With the longest day now less than a month away, what kind of a summer are we in for this year? June is busting out all over, as the song goes. So whatever the weather, make some time to take in all that the longest days have to offer. And if you're listening to this past your bedtime, well, perhaps it's time to turn in. Until next time.